পিয়ানো তো আসছে,
লট অফ ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড সাউন্ড,
বাট পিয়ানো ইজ দেয়ার,
পিয়ানো ইজ দেয়ার।
তো দ্যাটস এনাফ।
আমরা একটা ওখানে একটা তুমি টেস্ট করো, আমি ওখানে রেখে আসি।
Once though, very nice job.
Thank you, Kathy, for warm piano music. We'll begin the spiritual retreat with Vedic chanting by the Swamis.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vitvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.
Om, may the Supreme Spirit protect us. May the Supreme Spirit nourish us. May we work together with great energy. May our study be vigorous and fruitful. May love and harmony dwell amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Om Asato ma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Yamritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from the darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shriyam Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshaviryajatraha Sthirairangai Stushtvagam Shvastanubhihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Shasti na Indro Vriddhashravaha Shasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Shasti nastarksho arishtanemihi Shasti no Brihaspatir dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om, may we hear with our ears what is auspicious. May we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we sing praises of the creation and enjoy with strong limbs and body the life allotted to us. May all the divine forces be auspicious to us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Om Madhuvakaritaayate Madhuksharanti Sindhavaha Madhirna Santoshadi Madhunaktam Utoshasi Madhumat Parthivagam Rajaha Madhudaurastuna Pita Madhumano Vanaspatir Madhumagam Astu Suryaha Madhirgavo Bhavantunaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Sweet blow the winds and the oceans give forth blessedness. May the herbs and plants bring us health and happiness. Sweet unto us be the nights and dawn. May every particle of Mother Earth be charged with blessing. May the heavens shower us with benediction. Sweet unto us be the noble forest trees. Sweet unto us be the shining sun. Sweet unto us be all living creation. Om, sweetness, harmony, peace.
Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
invisible is verily the infinite spirit. All that is visible is also the infinite spirit. The whole universe has come out of the infinite spirit. The Supreme Spirit is infinite, although the whole universe has come out of it. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Namaste, dear Swamijis. Namaste, devotees and friends. Welcome to this very special retreat to celebrate Swami Vivekananda, the celebration we hold every 4th of July to honor Swamiji. Thank you for choosing to participate in this blessed retreat. Today is the 250th birthday of the United States, the day this nation became free. Swamiji loved and celebrated this day and nation very much, so we'll see a celebration of America and Swamiji in our retreat today. The American Independence Day had great significance for Swamiji. He spent close to 4 years in this country, and he celebrated the holiday every year with his friends, not only here, but also in India. In July 1898, 4 years before his Mahasamadhi, he planned a trip to Kashmir to stay on the houseboat on the gorgeous Dal Lake in the valley of Kashmir. 4 of his American and British disciples went on this trip with Swamiji. They were Sister Nivedita, Mrs. Patterson, Josephine McCloy, and Mrs. Hope. And Swamiji also secretly planned a 4th of July celebration in Kashmir. So in the early morning of the 4th of July, Swamiji came for breakfast with his disciples. He surprised his disciples by unfurling an American flag in Kashmir, a flag that was made by recruiting an unskilled Brahmin tailor who was instructed very secretly by Swamiji himself. Then he passionately read out the poem to the 4th of July, which he had specially composed for this occasion in Kashmir. Of course, July 4th, 1776, the day the 13 colonies liberated themselves from British rule, is worthy of admiration. It was a unique, logical, and bold declaration by enlightened founding fathers who asserted that all men are equal and all are endowed with unalienable rights, such as life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and therefore have the right to be free. The Declaration highlights the importance of political freedom and equality. Even more boldly, 117 years later, the young Swami Vivekananda arrived in the United States and over a period of 2 years and 11 months, declared even more profound Vedantic truths, such as each soul is potentially divine. He fearlessly claimed that true freedom comes through realizing one's inner strength, that all religions are a valid path to the Supreme, that liberty is the first condition of growth. He urged all to pursue the ultimate spiritual liberty. These teachings, though stunning, have left an indefinable impact on America. American Declaration of Independence, together with Swamiji's teachings, represent complementary visions of freedom. One centered on political liberty, the other on spiritual liberation, both inspiring people to live with courage and aspire for highest ideals. During the 2 trips he made to the US, Swamiji showered abundant spiritual gifts on this nation, gifts which have permanently permeated the very fabric of American society. He influenced generations of philosophers, writers, educators, artists, industrialists, philanthropists, psychologists, spiritual seekers, and most of all the regular Americans who Swamiji loved and cared for very much. It is due to his teachings that today yoga and meditation are part of everyday vocabulary and interfaith dialogue is popular. We live in a cashless society now, but if you can find a $1 bill, you'll see an unfinished pyramid symbolizing America is not a complete nation yet. It has more work to do to become a more perfect union, as the Declaration of Independence says. There is an eye of providence on the pyramid, a symbol of divine guidance. We can safely conclude that the gifts and blessings of Swamiji are the divine guidance that can make America complete. We learn about the divine gifts Swamiji bestowed on the United States and how they will show us the path to liberation from a lineage of Swamijis. We have Professor Chattopadhyay who will talk on science and spirituality in the life of Swami Vivekananda, with patriotic songs and praises of America, with heartwarming devotional singing and soothing instrumental music. Our retreat will be joyous and delightful. This morning session will end at 1 p.m. and will start again at 2:15 p.m. Please silence your phone if you haven't already done it. Now I request Swami Prasannapananda to present and speak on the theme of the retreat, the gift of Swami Vivekananda, liberty to liberation.
I welcome you all in this holy precinct of Vedanta Society, Berkeley. In Bhagavatam, Kopila Deva is saying his mother, Devahuti, Satang prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hrit karno rasayanaha katha tajjoshanat ashu apavarga barthmani sraddhar pati bhakti anukramishati. The meaning is, by the close association with the real aspirants, my glorious, powerful spiritual discussion begins. It is good for our ears and minds. Therefore, by hearing this discussion, first we become respectful towards God, then develop likings, and lastly, bhakti or devotion grows. So we all, and Swamis are here, so we are in association with real aspirants. So with this association, the spiritual discussion begins, and with this we shall develop first the respect towards God, then we develop likings, and lastly our bhakti will grow. The theme of today's retreat is Gift of Swami Vivekananda, from liberty to liberation. Today we gather to celebrate the 4th of July, the day the United States claimed its political liberty. But for Swami Vivekananda, who held a deep love for America and ultimately chose his very day to leave his mortal frame, true independence transcended political documents. To him, liberty was an absolute spiritual reality. The gift he left behind on 4th of July in 1902 is a radical philosophy. That liberty is the primary condition for all human growth. He admitted political liberty as the vital stepping stone and said, all of us want to get rid of misery. We are struggling to attain to liberty, physical, mental, spiritual. This is the whole idea upon which the world is working. For Vivekananda, true liberty meant shattering the shackle of mind and realizing that every soul is inherently free. To him, liberty is the destruction of ignorance. His concept of sovereign self serves as a roadmap of breaking mental and spiritual chains. Through today's lecture, I hope we can finally unwrap this profound gift and discover the true blueprint for ultimate independence. Thank you. I welcome you again to this holy precinct of Bartley Vedanta Society and hope that you all will utilize today's retreat. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji, for explaining the deeper significance of July 4th for all of us. We'll now have the American National Anthem played by Kathy on the piano and chorus members Joe, Karen, Mel, Shoma, and Subhadra sing. Please rise if you can, and if you can find the lines online, please sing along. Now I request Swami Vivekananda to lead us with flower offering.
So the volunteers will give you the flowers. I shall chant the mantra. You follow the mantra after my chanting, and then the volunteers will collect the flowers from you. Please collect the flowers. I have collected the flowers. Let me chant. Om Janani Sardam Devim Ramakrishna Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Sritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu Om Oim Ring Esha Shachandana Pushpo Billu Patranjali Sangaya Shavarnaya Shashaktikaya Shaparshadaya Sarva Devo Devi Swarupinnai Sri Sharda Vidvai Parabrahmane Namaha Om Jathargno Dahika Shakti Ramakrishne Sthitahiya Sarva Vidya Swarupangtang Saradam Pranamamyaham Om Sthapakaya cha Dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avataro Varisthaya Ramakrishnaya Namo Namaha Om Oim Esha Shachandana Pushpo Billu Patranjali Shangaya Shavarnaya Shashaktikaya Shaparshadaya Sarva Devo Devi Swarupaya Sri Ramakrishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha Om Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampa Dhrita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Paramesha Vidyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasha Namami Om Paratakte Sadalino Ramakrishna Samagnaya Yo Dharma Sthapanarato Viresham Tam Namamyaham Om Oim Esha Shachandana Pushpo Billu Patranjali Srimad Vivekananda Nathaya Namaha Namah Sri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Sarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. Our volunteer will go and collect the flowers for you.
We will now hear from our first speaker. I request Swami Natmanandaji to give us his message. Swamiji is not new to us, but here's a short bio. Swamiji is the minister and teacher of Vedanta Society of Sacramento. He came to the US as the assistant minister in 1989 after the passing of Swami Shraddhanandaji. He is an initiated disciple of Swami Vivekananda, the 10th president of the Ramakrishna Order, and received his monastic vows from him in 1976. Swamiji was involved with humanitarian and other activities of Ramakrishna Mission Center in Gujarat before coming to the US.
Prasannaji, I think there was So here is the actually rectification. So here is a Sanskrit hymn sung by Shomita Chakravarti.
Apologies, Swami. I request you please give the speech.
Dear Swamijis and friends, we live in an era obsessed with freedom. We fight for political liberty, celebrate economic freedom, and guard our individual choices fiercely. Yet, despite having more options than any generation before us, why do we often feel so anxious, trapped, and divided? More than a century ago, a young monk from India stood before the world and offered a profound diagnosis of this exact human condition. That monk was Swami Vivekananda. His ultimate gift to modern thought is a spectacular roadmap that takes us beyond the surface level concept of liberty and elevates us to the ultimate spiritual height of liberation. To Vivekananda, liberty is not the destination, it is merely the training ground. Liberty is physical and social, liberation is spiritual. Today, let us explore how he bridges these two concepts through three distinct dimensions: social reform, mastery of the mind, and the realization of our innate divinity. Vivekananda was a fierce champion of liberty in the physical world. He defined it simply: liberty of thought and action is the only condition of life, of growth and well-being. He believed that any society, religion or institution that prevents a human being from thinking for themselves or choosing their path is entirely stagnant. For him, liberty meant equality of opportunity. That means breaking down rigid social hierarchies and caste privileges. The elevation of the masses. He famously said that a nation is advanced only as far as education and liberty are spread among the masses. Then freedom for women. He argued that a bird cannot fly on one wing only, meaning a society cannot progress while denying liberty to women. However, Vivekananda warned that external liberty, political independence, wealth, or social rights is incomplete on its own. If you give a person external liberty but leave them a slave to their desires, their anger, or their greed, they are still in chains. Social liberty gives you the right to choose, but it does not automatically give you the wisdom to choose wisely. This brings us to the second stage of the game, moving from the external liberty to internal liberty. Vivekananda challenged our modern concept of freedom. We think we are free when we buy what we want or say what we want. But Vivekananda asks, are you driving your mind or is your mind driving you? If someone insults you and you instantly fly into a rage, you are not free. Your environment is pulling your strings and you are reacting like a machine. Vivekananda taught that true internal liberty begins with mind discipline through Raja Yoga, the science of concentration and meditation. By mastering the mind, we cease to be at the mercy of external circumstances. We gain the liberty to choose our internal state. As he beautifully put it, the disciplined mind is our best friend, but the undisciplined mind is our greatest enemy. Internal liberty is the bridge. Once we conquer our own nature, own lower nature, we are praying for his ultimate gift, complete liberation. For Swami Vivekananda, the ultimate goal of human life is liberation or mukti. This is not a state to be achieved after death in some distant heaven. It is a living reality to be experienced here and now. Liberation is the realization of the Atman, the divine infinite soul within each of us. When you realize that your true nature is eternal, birthless, deathless, and pure, all fear vanishes. And when fear vanishes, you are truly free. How do liberty to liberation connect? Liberty is a means, liberation is the end. We need social liberty so we can grow, think, and seek. Social liberty depends on laws and governments. Spiritual liberation depends on nothing external. It is your inherent nature. A liberated soul does not retreat to a cave. Vivekananda introduced a dynamic spirituality, Atmana Mokshartham Jagat Dhitayacha, for the liberation of one's self and for the welfare of the world. The true liberated individual returns to society to serve others, seeing the same divine soul in the poor, the suffering, and the marginalized. Service to man becomes worship to God. Swami Vivekananda's gift to us is a grand ladder of human evolution. He tells us, fight against oppression, seek education, and demand equality. Then master your impulses, focus your mind, and refuse to be a slave to your senses. And finally, recognize that you are not weak, limited creature. You are the infinite spirit. As we navigate the complexities of our modern world, let us not settle for a superficial version of freedom that only looks at what we can possess or consume. Let us reach for the higher freedom Vivekananda modeled for us. Let his most famous clarion call, echo in our hearts as a reminder of our journey from liberty to liberation. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a Bengali song. I'm trying to do justice to Bengali. Esho Bubano Pavano Narayana by Sunidaji and chorus. And we have Chitto Dada, aka Chitto, and Rucha on the tabla. Here Swami Vivekananda is addressed lovingly as Lord Narayan himself. And Swami is depicted as a divine manifestation who came to sanctify humanity.
ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ এসো আর্ত পতিত চিতে শান্তি বিতরিতে আর্ত পতিত চিতে শান্তি বিতরিতে ত্রিভুবন কারণ কারণ এসো ভুবন নবন নারায়ণ এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ এসো হিংসাহেরি ঝরিত নয়ন বাড়ি শাপ প্রচারিলে দেশে দেশে ঘুরি লাঞ্ছনা সহিলে সাধি শিখাইলে লাঞ্ছনা সহিলে সাধি শিখাইলে জীবহিতে জীবন ধারণ এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ বন্ধ কাটো প্রেম দিয়ে খুলিয়া দাও ঠুলি হেরি নয়ন মেলি খুলিয়া দাও ঠুলি হেরি নয়ন মেলি ঘটে ঘটে সেই নীলাঞ্জন এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ বিজ্ঞান ভাস্কর এসো হে শঙ্কর ভৈরব অধীরবে মোহধান্ত হার বিবেক আনন্দ দেহ বিবেকানন্দ বিবেক আনন্দ দেহ বিবেকানন্দ নন্দিত কর ত্রিভুবন এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ এসো আর্ত পতিত চিতে শান্তি বিতরিতে আর্ত পতিত চিতে শান্তি বিতরিতে ত্রিভুবন তারণ কারণ এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ এসো ভুবন পাবন নারায়ণ
Thank you, Sudaji and Phyllis. I invite Swami Pattomayananda ji to give his talk on Swami Jina. Swami Pattomayananda is the minister of the Vedanta Society of Northern California in San Francisco. He has traditional training in Hindu scriptures, Sanskrit, Vedic, and Vedantic literature. Before coming to the United States in 2012, he was teaching Sanskrit, Vedantic scriptures, and Indian philosophy at the training center in Peruma. Apart from his traditional education, the Swami has also received modern university education in English literature, psychology, European history, and Western philosophy.
योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचिमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयति अखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्. My pranams to Swami Vivekananda ji and namaskar to all the Swamis, devotees, friends, well-wishers of this Vedanta Society who are assembled here. The topic is historically very important, the gift of Vivekananda, from liberty to liberation. Now, what is the uniqueness of Swami Vivekananda's contribution to this unique American socio-economic political experiment that began 250 years ago? We are now celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence of the United States. It is said by historians sometimes that America got independence thanks to the Battle of Antioch, the battle between the French and the French East India Company and the English East India Company. With this East India Company won the Battle of Antioch, and French almost went bankrupt, and as a result they want to take revenge on the British by assisting the American colonists in their battle against the British colony. That's one of the historical interpretations. Whatever it is, the fact is that this led to a very unique era in the history of these socio-economic political experiments in the history of human civilizations. The oldest democracy and also perhaps the largest democracy is India. So the contribution of the largest democracy to the oldest democracy is this spiritual gift. During the same journey, the journey started in the 16th century when people in Europe were looking for freedom to worship the way they wanted. They were persecuted, their churches were burned, and finally they took courage and crossed the ocean, crossed the 3,000 miles of Atlantic, reached here in search for freedom to practice religion that they wanted. But perhaps that quest for freedom was certainly fulfilled so far as economic, political, and social liberties are concerned. But Vivekananda helped America to continue its journey in search of freedom, spiritual freedom, which is called liberation, moksha in Hindu tradition. From where it left, in the Battle of Yorktown, Gettysburg, and elsewhere, the journey continued till the coming of Swami Vivekananda in 1893. Today, if you travel anywhere in the United States, and if you happen to talk to an educated adult audience, and talk to them something like this: your religion is wrong, my religion is only true religion, you're worshipping the devil, and my God is the right God. People laugh at you. That's because of this unique gift that came from Vivekananda. The entire paradigm of interfaith relationship took a complete transition in 1893 when Swamiji came to this country, and you find the verse that Swamiji quoted in Kishika Gathas, which is the document of this message, this gift of liberation. Ye yathamam prabadyande tam sadaiva bhajami mama vagma anuvartandi manushya partha sarvasya. Whatever religion you follow, whatever path you follow, whatever church you go to, whatever read you book that you read, rituals you perform, if you are pure, if you are a good human being, your prayers will be answered. You'll be liberated. That's the message of Gita. And then Swamiji gave some very practical examples and illustrations of how this actually happened in Indian history. Swamiji talks about the emigration of the Jews right from 4th century BC, 71 AD of the collapse of the Masada. And then Swami talks indirectly about the coming of the Syrian Christians in 52 AD, just a few years before the second Jewish migration took place of the Battle of Masada. And then Swamiji also refers to the migration of the Parsis, the Zoroastrians, in the 7th, 8th century AD to the Zoroastrian coast. And then not only that, the oldest Muslim masjid in the world, perhaps you may know, it is located 40 miles, maybe 35 miles away from the second oldest synagogue in the world. The second oldest synagogue is in Cochin, Matancheri. And the second oldest masjid is actually built during the time of Prophet Muhammad himself. The Arab traders used to come to trade dates, and they used to take from India, buy from India ivory. is mentioned in even in the Arabian Tales. And they continued coming after the emergence of Islam, and the local king allowed them to convert one of the ancient Hindu temples into a Muslim masjid. It's called Cheraman Masjid today. It goes back to 625 AD. Swamiji doesn't refer to all this. But today, as I mentioned earlier, even in this country, if you go to a place, a university, or any educated place, and talk to people, well, your religion and my religion are two different approaches to the same goal. If A is right, it doesn't mean that B is necessarily wrong. A and B can be two different approaches to the same goal. That was the gift that Swamiji gave to this country. Actually, it was the gift of spiritual culture, spiritual civilization, the spiritual paradigm that defined Indian culture and tradition for almost 8,000 years, which began in the first Rig of Rigveda Samhita, Agni-mele Purohitam Yajnashidevamurticham Khotar Ratnadhatanam. And the last Rig is Yathasusahasati, in the 190th Suktam of the 10th Mandala of Rigveda. In fact, the oldest religious document of India, of Hindu tradition, of the world, defines and describes and outlines the gift that Swami Vivekananda brought to this country in 1893. That's why in the book published later on about the most distinguished guests who came to America, Swami Vivekananda's name is mentioned. I have to remember Swamiji's greatness was, this was not his gift. If you look at Swamiji's lecture, you find he repeats again and again. Well, if you look at my talks, lectures, writing, you find that I have not preached anything but the Upanishads. Those Upanishads go back to maybe 8th or 9th millennium BC. Swami Vivekananda was only giving a modern interpretation of this gift that is enshrined in the Vedic literature, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhashyas and commentaries of Shankaracharya, and even in the writings of Buddha. That gift that is handed over from generations and generations of Acharyas and Guru Parampara, succession of teachers who were responsible for the preservation and the revitalization of Hindu tradition. Swami Vivekananda brought to this country in 1893. So look at the time when Swamiji came and what happened in this country and what prepared America, what prepared the spiritual landscape of the United States to accept and appreciate and celebrate this gift. When Swamiji came to this country in 1893, America was already ready for something universal. In the east coast of the United States, people were fed up with the ecclesiastical, with the Abrahamic, fanatical idea that your God is not the right God, my God is the right God. So you also come over to me. And Swamiji turned this upside down. And the greatness of America is that 5,000 people got up in Columbus Hall, cheered Swamiji, and Vivekananda became the celebrity of the entire first parliament religion. Dr. Henry Barrows, in his voluminous 2-volume classics, he writes, when Vivekananda walked across the platform, people cheered, and he is still the most remembered, the most celebrated name among innumerable speakers who participated in the first parliament religion in 1893. There were Christian theologians, Jewish theologians, there were Muslims, there were Buddhists, there were Jains, including one Gandhi, not Mahatma Gandhi, some another Gandhi who represented Jainism. They all were speakers on that platform. But the world remembers only one great speaker. And he came to this country not as a delegate of a great organization. He came to this country, and one great American said and recognized Professor Wright, Swamiji, to ask you to give a kind of recognition, registration to speak this platform is like a son asking for permission to shed his light around the world. And letter that Professor Wright wrote, Swamiji lost actually. But we may ask this question, and that has something to do with America's 250 years of journey from the Declaration of Independence to our own times. In 19th century, one great man, one great American, Emerson, whose Brahma actually contains almost straightforward translations of one or two verses of the Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter. 4 verse, small tiny verse of Emerson. Emerson was influenced by Bhagavad Gita, a very inaccurate, very imperfect translation of the Bhagavad Gita, which was done in English by Charles Wilkins, was a humble, almost semi-illiterate clerk in the East India Companies in Calcutta under Lord Vaughan Hastings, the first Governor General of Bengal. It was the first place that goes under British, that went under British rule in India in 1757 Battle of Plassey. So this humble clerk, Charles Wilkins, translated Gita, very inaccurate, very imperfect translation. And that book was gifted by Thomas Carlyle, was a French social critic and historian, the French Revolution. So Thomas Carlyle gifted this book. If you read that book, you won't recognize Gita at all because it's so totally different from the real Gita translation. But that inaccurate translation was enough to inspire Emerson, and there is the beginning of a new history in the history of America's cultural, civilizational, historical journey. Emerson's transcendentalism, later Whitman and Thoreau, they were all highly influenced by this small little gift of Bhagavad Gita, that again contained the teaching that Swami outlined in his first Chicago address. Ye thamam prabadyante tam thadaiva bhajamika mama varmani vartante manusya partha sarvasya. Wherever a human being prays to God with a pure heart, unselfish life, unselfish activities, his prayers will be answered by God. But God is either the God of everyone or is God of none. That's the message of Gita. And Emerson, Thoreau and Whitman, and even the great American president who is the most unforgettable name in America's political history, Abraham Lincoln. Though we don't know whether he was anyway influenced too far to stretch that he was anyway aware of Vedanta. But anyway, those days were days when America was evolving a unique spiritual paradigm. And so when Vivekananda spoke in the Chicago Parliament of Religion, almost 4,000, 5,000 people stood up and cheered him. Now, this was actually a gift that helped America to continue its journey from political freedom, social freedom, economic freedom to spiritual freedom, which we call liberation or moksha. So, in a way, I take this opportunity to congratulate the organizers to make this theme, which is so relevant and so important in America's history, this liberation. Another very important aspect I shall touch upon, and then it's conclude right now. Vivekananda's legacy continues to our own times. If you look at, as I mentioned earlier, everywhere you go in America, there is always a natural, a liberal, a welcoming attitude towards any great ideas coming from anywhere in the world. There will be minor aberrations that are unavoidable in the history of any civilization or culture. But that trend, that ennobling trend, it continues to exist in America. I shall contrast this with Vivekananda's reception in London. You know, after Swami Vivekananda concluded his lecture in London, a small parlor hall of an English nobleman, and it was the first session. It was a session in which Sister Nivedita, Miss Margaret Noble, had an opportunity to listen to Vivekananda. When they were leaving the lecture hall, they were making remarks, oh, there is nothing so spectacular about this. But that lecture was a turning point in the life of the greatest Western disciple of Vivekananda, that is Sister Nivedita. That is the time when Sister Nivedita heard about Vivekananda, and Miss Margaret Noble became the dedicated, that's the English translation of her name, Sister Nivedita, given by Swami Vivekananda. But in America, as I mentioned earlier, when Swamiji was sitting on a stone bench outside a church in Chicago, Miss Hale, a lady, just looked across and saw a strange looking person, not an American, not a European either, sitting there with a strange expression. She welcomed him, and she was the one who later took him to the registration office, got him registered as a speaker, as a delegate for the Parliament of Religion. And then what happened? We don't hear much about the great speakers. As I mentioned, we only hear of Vivekananda. That Vivekananda actually came to San Francisco, came to Oakland, came to Northern California. He had to spend in this country 4 years preaching, up to 1897, preaching Vedanta, which he outlined in his first talk, the Great Chicago Address, Sisters and Brothers of America, which actually would maybe must have lasted about 6 or 7 minutes. So 6 or 7 minutes talk continued for more than 4 years. And Swamiji left America in 1897, went to Columbus, India, Columbus Hall, the first lecture, Colombo to Almora lectures begin. And then Swamiji also got a gift from America. That also I want to remind you about. Swami Vivekananda gave a gift to America. America also gave a gift to Vivekananda. What is the gift? You follow Vivekananda all the way from Colombo to Almora, you find him. He moves from one place to another place. And during his lectures, he's not talking much about spirituality or moksha. He's talking about the need for the eradication of social injustices, the necessity to introduce modern technology, modern tools of production, the necessity to introduce modern education. Vivekananda was a monk, an all-renouncing monk, who was talking to Indians in the 19th century about the need to make themselves prosperous. An all-renouncing monk who had nothing to claim of his own had to tell Indians, poverty is not spirituality. Inaction is not sattva-guna. Spirituality doesn't mean that you remain eternally poor, inactive. If you follow him, you find Vivekananda criticizes orthodoxy in South India. In Bengal, he talks about the need for courage, bravery, and physical strength. He was like a doctor. If you go to a doctor, if you have a fever, he give you one medicine. If you have something else, he give you another medicine. Look at Vivekananda, like a doctor treating patients. He's talking about the need for India to become economically prosperous, technologically advanced, socially united. So the gift that he brought from America back to India was the gift of education, modern education, need for modern education, need for modern technology. Spirituality cannot by itself preserve your culture and civilization. You need a strong society. You need economic prosperity. You need unity. You need hard work, efficiency, management skills, leadership skills, organizational genius. All this you need to preserve your ancient culture. This gift he took from America. He said he fell in love with organization. The trick, the method, the genius of organizing and doing things efficiently, and not talking too much about your greatness. So often, I tell you something, I'll conclude now. It's a very strikingly important element. I was in India. I had to attend WCC's interfaith conference. There was a delegate who came from Israel at that time. So interesting conversation now. An Israeli believes he can do anything because upon that depends his survival, physical survival, strength, courage, self-confidence. A Hindu thinks he can do everything, then goes to sleep. So what the point, the gift of Vivekananda to India was, he taught Indians, he reminded Indians about need to work hard and then to harmonize the best of the traditional with the best of the modern, the best of the religious, spiritual with the best of scientific, technological. He says what we need today is a harmonious blending of the best of the modern with the best of the traditional. There is scientific, technological, spiritual ideas and modern education. So he also took a gift back to India. So I want to remind you about that. And I want to conclude by congratulating all of you for arranging this important event on a very, very relevant and very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj, for covering various points in the history of the US and India, and for showing us the basis of spiritual fit for Swamiji's Upanishads. Thank you. So next we have two soulful and devotional hymns. They are on echoing beats and amazing grace. It is sung by Mel and Karen and Kathy on the piano.
And let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as a mother, children all are we. Let me walk with my brother in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let peace be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take its moment and live its moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. With God as a mother, children all are we. Let me walk with my brother in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be my moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take its moment and live its moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was once lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious be the grace appeared the hour I first believed. Through many pages, toils and snares, I have already come. This grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright light shining as the sun, with no less days to sing God's praise than we first begun.
Thank you very much for those beautifully sung hymns. They're very inspirational. Thank you. Now we'll hear from Swami Vivekananda ji. Swami Vivekananda is the assistant Swami at Vedanta Society of Northern California in San Francisco. As a doctoral student at UC Berkeley, he used to attend the lectures of Swami Vivekananda of the San Francisco Center, who is also the founder of this Berkeley Center, and later became his disciple. He leads a discussion group at Stanford University for the study of Vedanta philosophy and Sanskrit language. Maharaj, we request you to address.
So, the title is The Gift of Swami Vivekananda, From Liberty to Liberation. And if one looks at the United States at this time, one finds that indeed the idea of liberty has been well established for hundreds of years. It's understood in so many different ways. And it's practiced, not always very perfectly, but it's practiced, it's attempted. And if any discrepancies are found, serious efforts are made to restore the ideal of freedom. And in that sense, it has been very successful. But what we want here is actually more than that. So the direction that has been pointed out to us is not only the type of liberty, the type of freedom, the type of life, the type of privilege that we have fought for in this country for hundreds of years and are still fighting to preserve. we're trying to stretch that from the physical realm, from the intellectual realm. We're trying to stretch it to the physical realm. So in that sense, we are using the freedom, the techniques, the knowledge, the practices, the procedures that have been so well developed in this country. We're using them by extending them also to the physical, to the spiritual realm. The one thing that had been wanting, this actually has been wanting in the American scene, the political, the physical, the intellectual ideas of freedom have been very well understood, very well elaborated, and great attempts have been made to ever refine their practice to make them more effective in people's lives. But the one aspect of freedom that has been not neglected, but has not been emphasized as much as it should have been, is the idea of spiritual freedom. That there is an infinite destiny that we are actually striving for. We don't necessarily feel it all the time. Some people may feel it to a certain extent, some may never feel it at all. But there's a spiritual dimension to freedom that Swami Vivekananda pointed out to us, which had not been understood to that extent. Certainly, to some extent, it has been understood. Great efforts have been made in that way, as one can see from history, the historical movements in this country. The pilgrims came for the idea of freedom. It was a spiritual freedom, it was an intellectual freedom, it was a social freedom. Nevertheless, the pilgrims came to this country for freedom. And freedom is the essence of what everyone is looking for, what everyone is yearning for. We make a division, we make a separation between political freedom, social freedom, and spiritual freedom. But really, there is one reality, and freedom means the attainment of a consciousness of that reality. So, whether we are striving for freedom in a government, in the sense of government, in the sense of social freedom, any type of freedom is at heart a spiritual tradition, a spiritual quest. And that is what Swami Vivekananda brought to this country. It had been very well practiced in all these other ways, in social freedom, intellectual freedom, political freedom, so many ways it had been practiced. But it had not been much emphasized, except in certain spots. There were, one can see also a struggle for spiritual freedom in certain movements of American spiritual history. But there had not been a thorough understanding, there had not been a deep appreciation for it. Swami Vivekananda, in the way when we read the history of his travels and his work in this country, Swami Vivekananda put that traditional freedom that had been so well practiced politically, socially, intellectually, he gave it a spiritual turn. And I don't think we realize yet how important Swami Vivekananda's contribution really is. we tend to think of it as a contribution toward religious freedom and things on a religious level, perhaps to a certain sense, on a social level. But that Swami Vivekananda was really aiming at providing and bringing our consciousness to our consciousness, the idea of spiritual freedom, that at heart, that freedom already exists. At heart, the ancient sages have made it clear that that freedom is the heritage of every one of us. It is actually in existence already. And it requires practice, it requires dedication, it requires discipline in order to be able to practice it. So this is, but Swami Vivekananda, his emphasis, though it may have in some sense be seen as a social freedom or an intellectual freedom, in essence Swami Vivekananda's emphasis was spiritual freedom. Not that we should achieve it, but that we should realize that actually we already have it. We are that infinite reality. We are that which is free. Freedom is not something that we have to attain. It is not something that has to be enforced by regulations or by legislation. Freedom is something that has to be recognized. It already is, it already exists. And that impetus, that force, is still with us today. We still are struggling to attain that. We still are struggling to realize it. So to dedicate this 4th of July to freedom means freedom in every respect, in every way. And the foundation of it all is the basic reality of who we are, who this human being that we embody is. This is the infinite, this is the eternal, this is the free. So it is really our basic nature that is being celebrated today. This is the day of American independence, but it reminds us that that independence is not something that we have to achieve, it's something we have to recognize. It is in our hearts, it is in our being, it is in our essence. And that is a job we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji, for beautifully showing us that Swamiji's gift gave a higher dimension to the word meaning of freedom in America. Now we will imagine taking the train ride because we're going to enjoy the song America the Beautiful, which is a description of America's beauty, and God Bless America, 2 songs. This is with Mel and Karen.
Oh, beautiful, force, precious skies, our race of gray, for purple mountains. beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Mel and Karen. America is truly beautiful. And America is also a land of innovation and science. So to talk about science and spirituality in the light of Swami Vivekananda is Professor Swami Chattopadhyay. Professor Chattopadhyay is an extremely distinguished physicist with several illustrious achievements, so I'll try to capture a few. He is an acclaimed physicist who has spent over 4 decades driving breakthroughs in accelerator science and quantum technologies. He is part-time faculty at UC Berkeley and adjunct professor at Stanford University, and a distinguished scientist emeritus at Fermilab. He holds a PhD in physics from UC Berkeley. Some notable roles include former inaugural director of the Cockcraft Institute in the UK, and has held prominent positions at European Organization for Nuclear Research, CERN, LBNL, and NIU. He also holds several fellowships, including Fellow of the American Physical Society, Institute of Physics UK, and American Associations for the Advancement of Science. He has also published several articles in leading publications. Based in the foothills of the Himalayas, Professor Chattopadhyay often draws parallels between modern physics and Vedantic thought. He emphasizes that both seek a singular underlying reality. His pioneering scientific work on quantum sensors explores the elusive dark center of the universe. He frames this quest as a modern echo of the ancient Vedic search for the unmanifested cosmos. Throughout his career at institutions like CERN and Stanford, he has championed scientific collaboration as a unifying, peace-building global force. Professor Chattopadhyay actively engages with the teachings of Swami Vivekananda to find harmony between modern science, intellect, and spiritual consciousness. Professor, I request you to deliver the talk.
Thank you. Can I have the Swamis to go in front so you can see my screen? আসুন এখানে আসুন সামনে আসুন দেখতে পাবেন Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. Good afternoon. Happy 4th of July. Swamiji here has given me a hard task, has asked me to speak on science and spirituality. So I thank him for inviting me to this big event. I also want to thank the society itself, the Vedanta Society here. Thanks to all the Swamis that you already have heard, except one maybe, that you will hear later. And also I now see the house is full, which is nice. It's good to talk to a whole full house. So let me preamble a little bit and apologize. Swami Vivekananda was not a scientist, but he was a spiritual leader of the highest order. with the sharpest analytical mind, and he was influenced by the science of his day, and he complemented the science he knew by his spirituality. I am but just a humble physicist. I'm inspired by Swami Vivekananda's spiritual message and his practical approach to social responsibility and service to humanity. So I beg your forgiveness that I have the audacity to actually address this topic of science and spirituality in the name of Swami Vivekananda. But you will forgive me for not being a spiritual leader like Vivekananda, but I'll do my best to tell you how he inspired the science and technology of his day and has been an inspiration for me since my childhood. Let me just acknowledge at the very beginning the sources from which I'll be drawing when I speak about this topic. The first and most important source is the famous physicist Sir Erwin Schrödinger, who actually got Nobel Prize in Physics in 1932. And he, at the end of his life, was struggling with understanding how life works and what is the nature of consciousness. And so he gave a whole bunch of lectures in the Dublin Institute in Ireland, and then in the Trinity College in Cambridge, and these are actually captured by a very nice little book by Cambridge University Press called What is Life? And it includes discussions on mind and matter and all kinds of stuff. The second source was, of course, the Tata Group in India. I'll talk about how Vivekananda influenced science technology in India, and Jamsetji Tata was heavily influenced by Swami Vivekananda. And so in their website, there's a lot of information about Swami Vivekananda, if I've drawn from it freely. And finally, there is a book from which I've actually read quite interesting introductions to Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, Sarada Devi, Henry David Thoreau, and Meister Eckhart. And this is a book called The Spiritual Athlete, a primer for the inner life by Ray Berry, published in California in Olima Press. Okay. So let me introduce to you how I came to be introduced to Swami Vivekananda slowly through my childhood. I grew up in this beautiful hill town of Darjeeling, and this beautiful mountain you see is Kanchenjunga, and this captures my Himalayan childhood. This is at 7,000 feet. It's at the border, a very sensitive border between Nepal, Sikkim, Bangladesh, India, meet here. You can see 28,000 feet. Altitude of this mountain, and Darjeeling is 7,000 feet, and the distance between them is 50 miles or so. And I was fortunate in this late 50s, there was a Himalayan Mountaineering Institute that was funded by both New Zealand and Indian government. And Sir Edmund Hillary came and gave actually mountaineering lessons to all of us. So I had three major experiences in my childhood from this town, three significant experiences where, first of all, I met Sir Edmund Hillary and took some mountaineering lessons as a young boy of 7 or 8 from him directly. And he introduced me to, at that time, I think there's a famous New Zealand scientist called Sir Rutherford, who actually lived in England at that time. And he said, you can see the Sputnik in the sky now, the first satellite, man-made satellite put on the sky. He could see it with bare eyes in Darjeeling in 1958, 59. And so he was pointing to that. He said that I also come from a country of scientists, and he mentioned Rutherford. So I got to think that there must be a profession called science. And the third one was the most impulse one, which was actually, there's a building where Sister Nivedita lived. I'll talk about her later. And this happened to be the scientific laboratory of Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose, who was having financial difficulties, and he had heard from Swami Vivekananda's inspiration from science and his support for science. He approached Nivedita, and Nivedita allowed Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose to actually set up his lab in Darjeeling in our house. So when my father took me to our house, I saw all that. I heard the name Jagadish Bose, I heard the name Vivekananda, and this was my first actually inkling that there is something big that is associated with this building. And this is a house that still exists in Darjeeling. It was called the Royal Villa in 1911. For 3 years, it was the laboratory of Sir Jagadish Bose. Today, there's a branch of the Bose Institute in Darjeeling, it specializes in astrophysics and cosmology, and me and my family have been there. It's a wonderful little lab. And here I have a photograph of scientists and a nun. You can see how Nivedita was actually a pillar of support for scientific work. And she, of course, got the inspiration from Swami Vivekananda. Okay, and here's a picture of the two of them. Of course, she was Margaret Noble, and she was actually a very, very active social activist in Ireland and England. And she had the sense that whatever spiritual path you follow, you have to bring practical dimensions to it by making your life and society and access to all the resources equal by actually talking to the people of all, from the working class to the proletariat to the people, the peasants, the farmers, to the high technocrats and so on. And so my second glimpse was a second reckoning of Swami Vivekananda's scientific and social inspiration is this picture that you can find on the web, that on his way from Japan to Vancouver in his boat, he actually had a berth right next to Jamsetji Tata. Okay, he was a capitalist and he was an entrepreneur in India at the time. And Vivekananda was lamenting the fact to this gentleman that with all this British rule and also our money being spent by rich people like him, we do not really even know how to make a matchstick in India. When will we do science and technology education in India across the land? And Sir Jamsetji was so influenced by him during this little trip that lasted probably quite a few days, that when he went back in 1898, he wrote not a long letter, a 2-page letter to him. I have a copy of this. This is the letter that he wrote in 1898 from Bombay. And in this letter, he thanks Swami Vivekananda. Let me just show you the letter. You can slowly, that he actually reminds him that, remember me, I was a passenger in the plane, and he influenced me about the importance of science and technology in India, and blah, blah, blah. And then he says, do you think that you would care to apply yourself to the mission of galvanizing into life your mission, traditions in this respect? Perhaps you can begin by putting out a fiery pamphlet, and I will support all the cost of making this public to the people of India, from the poor to the rich, and please support it. And with my kind regards, I am, dear Swami, your Jamsetji Tata. Okay. In response, of course, Swamiji, and he actually also suggested that if I create an institute, would you like to be the spiritual vice chancellor of this institute? Swamiji declined it, saying, I am not a man of educational profession. I will not be a good vice chancellor. But he actually was publishing a magazine called Prabuddha Bharata, and he actually commented on Mr. Tata's scheme, a long 2-page comment praising it, saying here is an entrepreneur who understands the need of the masses of Indians and stuff. At the very end, actually, you can see that he writes here that we repeat, no idea more potent for good to the whole nation has seen the light of day in modern India. Let the whole nation, therefore, forgetful of class or sect, see, he's very class conscious and telling them, join in making it a success. Swami Vivekananda. This was the start of the India's premier scientific institute called the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. I show a picture of it there. It still remains the top scientific institute in the globe. It falls in the top 100 universities in the world. I have visited that place many, many times, and you can see the statue of Jamshedji Tata in front. And I mean, you can imagine a monk and an entrepreneur just chatting for 2 days in a boring journey over the seas to Vancouver, and here comes a scientific institution of the highest order. Number two. Number three, actually, I came to know much later, after I came to America, is that he actually, when he came to Chicago and gave this influential speech in the World Parliament of Religions, same year, Tesla was in Chicago showing his technical gadgets and electrical equipment and electricity and all of that. Later on, Swami Vivekananda and Nikola Tesla actually had quite a few, about half a dozen meetings in that year, and later on. Tesla was incredibly impressed by Swami Vivekananda, and in particular, the idea, there was this Vedantic idea. Swami Vivekananda, of course, was chosen by Sri Ramakrishna to concentrate on understanding the ancient wisdom of the Vedas through the Upanishads and Vedantic thing, and this idea of matter and energy having aspects of reality. Matter is akasha, energy is prana, and then somehow you must be able to make them equivalent in your work. And Tesla was trying to think how he could actually demonstrate through his electrical equipment that matter and energy could be equivalent, and matter actually has potential energy. Well, it did not come to be through him, but much later, actually. So this demand, and he was very, very impressed with this idea, but it took about, I would say, another maybe 15 years before independently it took Albert Einstein to eventually formulate the fact that energy in matter and matter itself are actually the same thing. So the akasha and prana are the same thing. In fact, I'm showing you a computer simulation of a particle physics simulation where, everywhere in the material world you will find molecules and atoms. Inside these there are little nuclei. Inside the nuclei there is protons and neutrons. Inside a proton we think there are three little things called quarks. If you look at the three little things that make up the proton, they're very, very light. They don't make up for the weight of the proton. And if you look carefully, you find out that actually these guys are interacting with each other to a very strong interaction called gluonic interaction, which makes up most of the weight or mass of the proton. It's not the mass of the constituents. So the quantum chromodynamics that got established eventually in 1970s established the fact that matter, at the very core of it, the nucleus in our body and any material, is mostly jostling energy, which converts into and makes us feel like it has a mass. So this is your akasha and prana being equivalent. Of course, these were inspired by spiritual thoughts of Swami Vivekananda, and it influenced the technologies like Tesla, but this is real-time manifestation of that analytical mind like Vivekananda had, and that showed. Now you can see that there is actually a stamp in the name of Tesla and Vivekananda. And here, another thing I'll say, that Tesla was also very much influenced by Vivekananda's narration of cosmology. I mean, there are so many ways to think about cosmology in science and the spiritual domain, but of course we, coming up with Indian background, we kind of have the feeling that beginnings and expansions come in little periods called kalpas, and then you destroy, and then you start all over again. The srishtis and kalpas come. So physicists and cosmologists have been struggling with the idea how to explain the cosmological evolution. And today's best theory, of course, is the Big Bang, that 13.8 billion years ago, there was some very special event that took place, and we have expanded almost towards the end of that expansion period. Many people have many theories, but one of the contending theories, and this is actually just a contention, is not actually proven yet, but Sir Roger Penrose, who just got Nobel Prize in 2020 for his work on cosmology, actually has a very convincing theory. It's called cosmic cyclic cosmology, where you actually get cycles of creation of the universe and destruction and creation continuous. I show you in a schematic way what that picture looks like. It's one of the very many models. It may or may not be true, but at least the fact that it, when I talked to Roger, he said that somehow there is a natural beauty and symmetry in this thinking. You do not have to explain the singularity that is the Big Bang. Why the singularity, why then, and why that, and so on. This just takes away that question and says that this is just a continuous repeated thing. The fourth reckoning was that I came across that actually Swami Vivekananda also interacted with leading philosophers of his day, including William James, who was actually a philosopher, but he's also known as the father of American psychology, not American people's psychology, but he was an American, and who started the profession of psychology in America, which was already very ripe in Germany with Freud and Carl Jung and so on. And they met many, many times, half a dozen times, and actually you can write a magnum opus by this gentleman, William James. And in this book is named The Varieties of Religious Experiences, and there's quite a few chapters on the stuff that he discussed with Swami Vivekananda in his magnum opus. So let me now say that what do we understand by science and spirituality, and without referring to any religion, but just the idea, let me just try to explain. There is this idea of Sanatana Dharma that you can find, and it kind of only has three postulates. First postulate, without defining what it is, it says God is. They don't explain God or anything that God is. Second postulate is God can be realized. And the third postulate, realization of God, is the supreme goal of man. And that's it. Now, if you look at science, and as scientists, we grow up to believe that there is an ultimate truth. You just replace God by truth in everything. There is truth. Truth can be found. And finding truth is the ultimate goal of a scientist. Ultimate goal of man. So in a way, if you don't have to explain God, just the truth, okay? So there is actually no conflict between science and religion, except, unfortunately, today's science and scientists are too much focused on the material side of things, matter, energy, space, time, the entire domain outside of matter, which is actually not part of the scientific rapport. But in principle, these are the universal principles. And then finally, if you just take these two and say, go one step further, saying you don't have to talk about God or truth, it's something that you cannot really describe. So best to just say, maybe, I read a book called The Perennial Philosophy by Aldous Huxley. This was published in 1946 by Chatto and Windus. Chatto is a Chattopadhyay, but he's shortened it by Chatto, by British. It's actually, you can kind of call it as the ultimate spirituality, Param Dharma, or the Dharma of Dharmas. And it simply says that the scientific truth to spiritual God, to the one, single universal spiritual truth in all traditions, in all cultures, in all religions. And that is that there is the one. You cannot break it down anymore. You just have to call it the one. The one can be experienced. You cannot really do experiment in a laboratory to find the one, but the one can be experienced. And being one with the one is the universal perennial goal. So when you think about that and then see what did Swami Vivekananda, what I understand about Swamiji's outlook. He clearly understood scientific stuff is very important. So he says scientific experiment is kind of like similar to in the spiritual domain. It is a direct personal experience of what is, the one, the truth. There is no faith or dogma. You have a direct experience of it. Natural selection is not just rather unfolding of accident after accident, but it's actually maybe an inherent and purposeful cosmic consciousness. Evolution or emergence, you can understand scientifically, that is Darwinian term, evolution and emergence, but you can equally use the term involution, which actually implies there is some kind of a seed or a potential from which it involves and evolves. Western science, which is the discipline of understanding the operating principles, how to navigate yourself in space-time, in the material world, is replaced by an inner ethics in the spiritual life. So there is no conflict between Western science and Eastern spiritual philosophy. They are complementary paths to the same universal truth. Now, laws of the external material world, which we physicists try to discover and take pride and joy in, is actually can be understood in the domain of spirituality as the science of religion. How do you do precise experiments and experiences mentally? What is the method in which you map your internal world of human consciousness into your spiritual wisdom? It's an experiment of some sort, and so there is actually one-to-one correspondence between the two methods. Now let me turn quickly to the foremost scientist of the 20th century, Sir Erwin Schrödinger. He actually wrote in Mind and Matter, and he was pondering this business. He called it the arithmetical paradox, the oneness of mind. And he said the many conscious egos from whose mental experiences one world is concocted, it seems like. We simple scientists think that that's the way it is. Solution to this paradox is not just talking about sham ideas, but once one finds a genuine solution, then it answers all the questions about this arithmetical paradox of one and the many. He concluded that in this book that I talked about, the book about what is life and mind and matter, that consciousness cannot be accounted for in physical terms. The consciousness is absolutely fundamental, okay? And he gives these internal lectures in Trinity College, Cambridge, and man, what a beautifully written book, tiny little book, and a gorgeous book. And he says that in order for this, he at that time only could consider two things. There was a famous mathematician and polymath gentleman called Leibniz. Leibniz was German, and he's credited with inventing the mathematical technique of calculus, together with Newton, but the British royalty, nobility, they pushed Newton to be the person to be internationally perceived to be the inventor of calculus, so Leibniz was not given the credit. But he was a polymath, and he was dealing with this problem of existence, consciousness. He came up with the crazy idea of monads. To him, it was not crazy. Mathematicians still take it very seriously, and principles of monadism are being applied in artificial intelligence today. But he had this idea that there are these monads consisting of three things interacting with the world. They have no windows, they're totally incommunicado with each other, and yet they speak the same language. How come? That's because there must be some pre-established harmony between them. That was already established way before we know. Schrödinger thought this didn't just make sense to him as a scientist, but he parked it on the side, and then he comes to the second thing. Sorry, let me just go. Yeah. Not coming. Displaced. Then he comes to the second alternative. He says that there is obviously one alternative, namely the unification of minds or consciousness. their multiplicity is only apparent. In truth, there is only one mind. This is the doctrine of the Upanishads. And not only of the Upanishads, the mystically experienced union with God regularly entails this attitude unless it is opposed by strong existing prejudices. So he is referring to the prejudices, and this means that it is less easily accepted by the Western than the Eastern mind. Western mind, of course, is the framework of the Greeks. It gave us the Greek science. Okay? And he says there is no kind of framework within which we can find consciousness in the plural. The only solution to the conflict, insofar as any is available to us at all, lies in the ancient wisdom of the Upanishads. Okay? So this is Erwin Schrödinger, and the Upanishads, a very good book by Michel Bidbol from France. He's the professor in France, University of Paris. There is a metaphysical epitaph here. This is Schrödinger writing in 42. So that which is not because we feel it, and it is not nothing because we don't feel it anymore, because it is, we are, and thus continue to be. So all being is one and only one being. And that it continues to be when someone dies tells you that he did not cease to be. This is Erwin Schrödinger writing in 1942. Then he writes that it is not only in Upanishad, but then he said, let me quote you an example outside of Upanishads from a Sufi, Persian Islamic mystic, 13th century, his name was Aziz Nasafi. And yet I'm taking it from a paper which is translated by Fritz Myers, and as the Swamiji said, many of these translations, came through multiple routes to some other language, from Persian to German to English to whatever. And so, but the gist of this thing is that on the death of any living creature, the spirit returns to the spiritual world, the body to the bodily world. In this, however, only the bodies are subject to change. The spiritual world is one single spirit who stands on unto light behind the bodily world, and who, when any simple creature comes into being, shines through it through a window. According to the kind and size of the window, less or more light enters the world. The light itself, however, remains unchanged. That was a Sufi saying. So towards the end of Schrödinger's life, he actually jumped around from campus to campus talking about, look, I have given you only my first equation, the Schrödinger equation, which explained the quantum physics and the quantum world. He said, I have adopted my second equation, which is more important than my first. And he writes Atman because Brahman from his readings of Upanishads. So let me just end that, scientists have been exploring the outer world and the inner world. Here you see Galileo Galilei trying to look beyond to the telescope, the solar system, going beyond the solar system into the space, and here he's trying to convince the king to give him some more money so he could build a bigger lens to see further out. Next you see Newton trying to look into inner space. He's trying to make a microscope to look into smaller objects. Okay, he's also trying to look into the inner dimensions of the material world and energetic world. So far, scientists have not been able to come up with a consistent mathematical theory of cosmological evolution of matter and energy. We have this tentative, very tenuous theory of the Big Bang, that something extra special happened 13.8 billion years ago with matter and energy were packed into a very small point called the Planck point, and then it starts to expand, and today this energy eventually coagulated into little particles, and these particles formed into atoms. Atoms form molecules, molecules form elements, elements coagulated into planets and stars and galaxies and so on. In the spirit of 4th of July, let me say that the 250th anniversary of Declaration of Independence of USA, and at the turn of the 19th century, just before that, there were these folks in East New England called Boston Brahmins, and then there was a very strong influence of Bhagavad Gita amongst Americans in that part of the world. Swamiji explained that there was Henry David Thoreau, there was Ralph Waldo Emerson, there was even Mary Baker Eddy, and they were heavily influenced already, all right? And this influence created a kind of a sympathetic spiritual background which allowed Vivekananda to address the crowd at the turn of the century in America. It allowed Rabindranath Tagore to explain the spiritual side of humanity. It allowed Japanese artist Kakuzo Okakura to interact with both Vivekananda and Tagore, and he wrote the Book of Tea, the Japanese Book of Tea, exploring the same themes. So I have a picture here where Vivekananda was hobnobbing with the local so-called Boston Brahmins of the day. And so this, I think, just came at the right time, at the right place, with a sharp analytical mind, with a spiritual heart and a spiritual soul, and he wanted it to be a practical approach to good living and not only just a scholastic study of spirituality, but it should bring in goods and fruits to the ordinary people toiling on the earth. So its practicality and social aspect of it is remarkable about Vivekananda. I would say that in a scientist's mind works in a way that at the beginning you try to understand something, you focus on it, and you get complex patterns and designs, and it looks like Alice in Wonderland. You do not really know where to start, where to go. And then you start to peel away the inessential details, and slowly patterns start to emerge. And eventually all the inessential details disappear, and you are left with just a bare skeleton simplicity of what is the essence of it. And this is the way a scientist's mind works, and dreaming into nothingness, meaning slowly getting rid of all the inessential thoughts that are crowding your trying to understand something, have to be left behind. And so you have to go ahead hoping there's something beyond it. So you dream, and you hope that your dreaming into nothingness will bring you something. And dreaming is a very important part of a scientist, and so I can give you some inspirational folks like today is 4th of July, so I can say that Carl Sandburg said nothing happens unless first you dream. The French are champions of liberty and liberation. Paul Valéry said the task of the mind is to create the future. The task of the mind is to create the future. French poet Paul Valéry and Eleanor Roosevelt said the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Despite all that, and today we see the world at large seems to have lost its way into artificial man-made conflicts that threaten to divide mankind and humanity. I just can wish that may the wisdom to restore peace and harmony by remembering Swami Vivekananda's spiritual message for all humanity, for all time, maybe can move us forward. Say, oh, Shanti, 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 peace, peace, peace. And I thank you for listening to me.
We learned a lot in this particular presentation. Perhaps the one takeaway is that when Professor showed the slide on karma and truth, and compared it, and that the most telling part of the talk is that now Western science and Eastern truth are complementary. Perhaps that's how Swami Vivekananda was able to influence science. Thank you. So now we have a chorus song, Gauranga Abhanga Ganga Kalale by Sunitaji and chorus. It is a hymn in praise of Lord Shiva. The song is presented to honor Swami Vivekananda's great qualities like fearlessness, renunciation, and compassion, which are very similar to Lord Shiva's.
So, on behalf of Vedanta Society Berkeley, we would like to congratulate Professor Chattopadhyay, and for the token of Kate to keep this memory alive, I would like to
That was a melodious tune. Thank you very much to Smitaji and chorus. Hope you enjoyed this morning's programs. Some announcements on upcoming events. There is a meditation workshop Saturday, July 26th and Sunday, July 27th in San Jose. This is for if you have not taken this meditation workshop before. You can register on our website for it. All Sunday lectures and classes are suspended for summer at Berkeley and San Jose House till the third week in September. Wednesday, Yoga Dharana classes alone will continue at 7:30 p.m. in San Jose all through summer. There is no break for meditation. So please visit the bookstall and pick up a few good books outside. And I have been asked to announce Swami Vivekananda will be giving a lecture titled Self-Realization and God Realization on Sunday, July 12th from 11 to noon at Sacramento Zoroastrian Center in Mather, California. We will now break for lunch. We will resume back at 2:15. Please collect your lunch boxes from Sarananda Hall. Thank you very much.